Good morning. I'm Spot On Weather Meteorologist Matthew Euler, and today we're going to take a look and do a little discussion on the upcoming long-range outlook. All right, we're going to start off where I left off on the short-range video I just posted. We're going to start off with Tuesday, 27th of December, next Tuesday. And so what we have going on next Tuesday is we have a 1,033 millibar high-pressure system over Iowa, and it's sending in some cooler air, generally in the upper Midwest, mainly to the north of Southeast Virginia. So what we expect for Southeast Virginia next Tuesday is very mild conditions. As you can see by the jet stream here, the orientation of the main core of the jet, polar front jet, remains oriented more southwest to northeast, and that is a warmer pattern. Also pay attention to the fact that this ridge just over the Cuba area is sending higher heights. It's ridging northwestward up east coast. So the combination of this ridge building further north, raising the upper level heights, and the orientation of the polar front jet, mainly from the southwest to the northeast, will result in some fairly mild conditions, with the majority of the colder air, as I mentioned, remaining further north over New York State, Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, into northern Pennsylvania. Despite the fact we have this 1033 millibar high over Iowa, just not enough of a push to really push the cold air south into southeastern Virginia, especially based on the orientation of this jet stream. All right, so mild next Tuesday for sure. We're expecting highs, by the way, reaching into the low 60s. And then we look at Wednesday, 28 December. We have an area of high pressure directly overhead southeast Virginia. So we will have some dry conditions, a little bit of rain to the west over southern Indiana, Illinois, into Missouri, northwest Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Another upper level low or system off of southern California. The main polar front jet next Wednesday orientates itself more northwest to southeast into Washington State, Oregon, across the northern plain states. And the zonal, you notice here how the flow with the polar front jet, it has sagged a little bit further south, closer to southeast Virginia. So what that will do is it's going to squash down that southeast ridge. If you look at this, you see how more of a bending of these upper level heights, a protrusion more upward, northward next Tuesday, and that gets squashed further down by next Wednesday as this jet stream axis becomes more west to east. So the temperatures will be slightly cooler next Wednesday, the 28th December, not quite as mild in the 60s. We're still looking fairly mild, though, in the 50s next Wednesday. Now, next Thursday, what happens is we have an area of moisture that moves into southeast Virginia. We have a little bit of rain that's going to develop and move in. We're not expecting very heavy rainfall amounts. Again, there's no nor'easter, there's no coastal low offshore, which would really produce heavier precipitation for us. It's not there. So we do have some lighter rain moving in. You will notice here the blue lines. Let me zoom in a little bit. You'll see some blue lines up here. This is some colder thickness values, lower thickness values in the Midwestern states, and a little bit more of a tighter packing there over Illinois and Iowa. So there is some Arctic air up here over the northern plains in the upper Midwest by next Thursday, the 29th. Another interesting aspect is the way this jet stream now is orientating itself. It was more zonal, but now you're starting to see a more of a northwest to southeast component across Montana, Wyoming, into Nebraska. So we're starting to get a little bit of a ridge that's trying to build up over the top of that upper level low. We do have some northwesterly wind vectors blowing colder air into the upper Midwest, which makes sense. Lower thickness values up there in the upper Midwest. So the winds are trying to turn more northwest to southeast from Canada again into the lower 48 at that point in time. So I just want to point that out. Another feature I want you to watch is this upper level low. The counterclockwise circulation around low pressure systems in the northern hemisphere, that is really what's going to direct colder air further southeast. Now let's move it ahead to next Friday, the 30th of December. So for a lot of folks, they're off, still on holiday break, or maybe you have a 4-day weekend, the Friday and Monday for New Year's weekend. So the way things look right now is we actually have some colder air that's going to move into southeastern Virginia. There's a couple high pressure systems, a 1038 high over North Dakota, and then a 1037 high over Missouri. There are lower thicknesses that are pushing down or stronger northwest wind flow here, and that is backed up by this jet stream, the cold upper level low over central Canada and around the vicinity of Hudson Bay, and this jet stream is becoming more amplified and more troughing is starting to develop across the eastern United States by this point. So you can see that we got some northwesterly wind flow, a stronger cold front blows through. Now it doesn't look as cold as it did yesterday. So the orientation of the front, the orientation of this jet stream, that's going to really dictate what happens and how cold it gets around the 30th of December, and 30th and the 31st New Year's Eve. All right, and then on New Year's Eve, a lot of folks, I know you have outdoor plants outside, we have 1,034 millibar high that's situated over southern Ohio. And the thicknesses are still fairly low, so we do have some colder air still into southeastern Virginia by this point in time. The orientation of the jet stream around this strong upper level low, you notice again how it's more northwest to southeast, which is a colder pattern for southeast Virginia in the wintertime. So we are going to be cold New Year's Eve. It doesn't look as cold as it did yesterday when I discussed it in the long range. So right now it's looking like highs in the lower 40s for New Year's Eve day. Lows dropping into the 30s overnight. Okay. For New Year's Day, we have a high pressure system again just sitting off of North Carolina. What we expect with that is, again, dry weather for New Year's Day. It looks dry, New Year's Eve as well as New Year's Day. It looks dry across southeast Virginia for your outdoor plans. The thicknesses do relax, they actually rebound more, which indicates that the air is going to start becoming more from the southwest, and a little bit of warm air advection on New Year's Day. Milder temperatures in the mid to upper 40s. The jet stream still is orientated more northwest to southeast from Canada into the eastern United States. So really, you see this ridge starting to build up. Now look at the comparisons. All right, so you see this ridge, and then on New Year's Eve, and then New Year's Day, you see this ridge still. This upper level low in the troughing is further west, which is bumping up this ridge. If this ridge amplifies further, let's say it becomes one huge ridge, that's going to deepen this trough even further, and we'll have colder air. So right now, it's interesting to see what happens with that. Going further out in time to January, really not very cold. The coldest air remains up over the northern plains and the northern Rocky states back out west. There is 1,001 millibar low, which is going to be pumping in some warm air advection, stronger warm air advection across the midwestern United States. Colder high remains over eastern Canada. But for us, it looks, about lower 50s, high temperatures, lows at night in the mid to upper 30s on the 2nd of January. But no significant cold shots. We have the one cold shot coming down for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then it changes a little bit. The temperatures moderate. For 3 and 4 January 2017, now we get a stronger push of colder air. You can see the thicknesses are starting to crash in the Midwest on the 3rd of January. When that happens, typically, we do get colder air that will spill all the way to the East Coast. So on the 3rd of January, I see a lot of rain starting to move back into southeast Virginia out ahead of a stronger cold front. There is Arctic air here to the north. And then the front will be pushing through slowly by the 4th of January. A lot of this is going to depend on the orientation of the upper level winds over this front. Will they be parallel or more perpendicular? At this point, it looks like the cold air kind of weakens as it heads southeast. So we don't have a major push of Arctic air on the 4th of January either. The 5th and 6th of January, this is well out and subject to change. The further out we get, the less accurate the forecasts become. Again, just to show you a pattern, we do have 1,011 millibar low developing over South Carolina with rain pushing up into southeast Virginia. Some snow on the backside of the storm into western Pennsylvania, Ohio, southern Indiana. We do have some mild conditions, though. Southerly winds again on the 5th of January, and as well as on the 6th of January, there'll be southerly winds. This system pushes offshore by the 6th of January. All right, and I wanted to show, this was interesting to me. I wanted to show the comparisons of the 5,000-foot temperatures. All right, so this is the 27th of December. And you notice on the 27th of December, I have purples, I have some maroons, I have some reds up into central and northwestern Canada. Okay. Now compare that to what I have here on the 1st of January. And we are expecting it to cool down with a shot of colder air the 30th. But notice the yellow is starting to show up here. You know, we're looking at negative 32 to negative 38 degrees Celsius temperatures at 5,000 feet, as compared to over here where they are negative 12 to negative 16. So quite a drop. My main point on this diagram I want to emphasize is much colder air is developing in the long range, again over Canada. You see this brighter yellow and orange areas, that's much colder air. So the question is going to be, now within my long range final thoughts, I'll talk about it here in a minute, some questions I have in relation to those two comparisons I just showed you. So we expect mild temperatures for southeast Virginia on the 27th of December, actually next Monday the 26th, as well as Tuesday the 27th. We expect highs to climb into the 60s, low to mid 60s across the area, as that southeast ridge will strengthen. Cooler air on the 28th of December, as the long wave pattern becomes more zonal, it squashes that southeastern ridge, as I mentioned in the charts in the discussion. We do have colder air moving in. Colder air is going to move in by the 30th of December, as the polar front jet stream will orientate its axis more into a trough northwest to southeast orientation from Canada towards southeastern Virginia. Now, we do have a major redevelopment of the much colder air over Canada by early January, and that's what I showed you here. All right, much colder air is starting to develop. We got this strong upper level low. Will that upper level low move southeast towards Hudson Bay, and will this ridge bump up over the western United States at the same time to where the core of this cold is going to flood into southeast Virginia? That remains to be seen. Also, will a negative Arctic oscillation and a positive PNA, Pacific North American pattern, where you get a ridge out west, will that develop to drag the core of that cold air from Canada into the eastern United States? Or will the persistent troughing out west with occasional passing troughs in the east continue? We get these glancing blows of colder air at times with these troughs that move through, but the pattern does not lock in place. All right, and we have not seen a full-fledged ridge, a strong upper-level ridge bumping up over the west coast of the U.S. in the east into western Canada yet. So that's what's going to be interesting. The AO and the PNA pattern, what's going to happen in the future with that? Below normal sea surface temperatures over the eastern North Pacific Ocean may actually be causing a more persistent trough there over the west as compared to recent winters. There's actually colder than normal sea surface temperatures over the eastern North Pacific right now, and troughs in the atmosphere tend to like colder surfaces. So maybe that's the cause of more persistent troughing so far this winter across the western U.S. And also, will the storm track shift from the plains, Midwestern states to the East Coast? Since Hurricane Matthew over the East Coast, we have seen very little in the way of coastal storms up the eastern seaboard. And we need a deep trough to all the way down to the Gulf Coast states and great upper level dynamics to make that happen. But it's just been interesting to watch since Hurricane Matthew how we haven't had many nor'easters. All right, that's all I've got for now. It's Spot On Weather. I'm about out of time. Thank you so much again for following us, and I'm wishing you nothing but the best for the new year. Have a great Thursday afternoon. And remember, we're Spot On Weather. If we're not spot on, we're not doing it right. Have a great day, everyone.